Hi, and welcome back to Loving a Veteran 101. This is part two. I'm Stacy. We're going to take you through the second part of this. Hopefully, you've done part one, done the work that goes with it, and this is the second part. So, we're going to have a three-part series, so join this one. I've often been asked when you're overwhelmed, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is simply one bite at a time. That's why we made our list, It's why we did what we did. And as a veteran, veterans are trained in the military in basic training that they have this mission, and their mission is broken down into objectives. Right? There's objectives. Typically, before they go out and deal with the objectives, they're given two, maybe three objectives at a time to reach the overall mission. They're done that once so they can process it completely. They can look for every pitfall, every downfall, make sure they're prepared, think about it, and know what they're going to do instinctively should anything come up. So they really process things two or three objectives at a time. Sometimes it's only one objective at a time. So when you're this big mission, maybe to overtake a country or do whatever, they don't just like arrive and say, hey, we're going to overtake the Capitol today. That's not how it works. They are told, we're going to go here. We're going to clear this. Maybe they're going to set up a base and they got to like dig a toilet. Whatever it may be, there are steps that lead to the overall mission and their objectives. So rather than a veteran becoming overwhelmed, they teach our military to do it one objective at a time. So we need to start looking at things that way. One, it helps us get rid of the chaos and not be overwhelmed. And two, when we're talking to our veterans and we're working on this with our veterans do one or two objectives at a time. So if you're trying to make a change in your relationship, they're going to really process and work through the one or two things at a time. So it is really important that we do that. It is really important that we like eat the elephant one bite at a time. And you've got to remember that as you begin to take control of your relationship, right? So that list you made the other day, that list that I asked you to work on, the written list, you need to read over it multiple times and on different times in the day or even different days. Prioritize your top 4 or 5 things every time you read the list. So depending on your mood and what may have transpired and what may be happening, you may see that the biggest issue could be this. Like, I just can't deal with the yelling or calling me a stupid name or whatever it may be. Or there are legitimately people out there who say, I can't handle the fact that my veteran doesn't take the trash out. Whatever it may be, as you read through your list, mark your top 4 or 5. Do it at least 3 times, if not more, and mark your top 4 or 5. Forget what you had marked the time before and start looking at it. Then when you're done with that, you're going to set it down and you're going to see a pattern. You're going to see, hey, this is really, it showed up every time I read the list. Well, that may be your biggest priority then. Or, hey, look, I thought this was a priority and it only showed up one time. That may be a lesser priority on your list. So as you're starting to eat that elephant, it's really important that we realize where we're going. It helps us stay focused and pick the single most important thing. Again, go back to a veteran, active duty. They're setting up a forward base, right, or a base. And they put the perimeter out, and they've got people now watching the perimeter. There are a few things that are kind of important. Where they're going to sleep, where they're going to eat, where they're going to go to the bathroom, right? So getting power, getting water, having supplies, putting a roof over their head, getting a latrine take a whole lot of precedence over getting the capital, which may be the overall objective. So you've got to remember that our overall objective may be way up here, but there are steps to take to get you ready to get to way up here. And they are as crucial as anything else. You can't be in 100-degree heat without something to drink, right? You can't have people without ammunition. You can't have all of these things without going to the bathroom, without having food, without having a place to sleep, without having medics. All that stuff is critical. You got to have fuel for the vehicles. All that stuff is critical. And while it may seem minor compared to the overall objective, it's just the grunt kind of work stuff that needs to be done first. So think of it in that mindset. All right? It is important that you never, ever, ever rank your list immediately following an argument. It is going to be swayed at that point. It's going to be swayed based on the argument. And that may have only been an argument you had one time. So never, ever, ever do it after an argument. Now you're going to get your top two things. And we're going to work on those top two things for the next 21 days. That's how we're going to work on it. Top two things, next 21 days. That's what we're going to do. It takes 21 days for something to become a habit. So don't think this is some miraculous sprint. Ownership is another huge part. When we are overwhelmed, both parties, doesn't matter who, we tend to put blame. Like, this is their problem, this is yours, you did this to me, you did that to me. So we have to learn ownership. What is yours? What is theirs? And what is an external source? Easiest way to do that is you just have to, there's like a little quiz that's on here to take. And as you do that and you start circling your answers, how many of you feel like it's your job to make them happy? It's your job to make them happy. I often put my needs and wants aside to help others. Like you're the last person on your own personal list. I feel let down or disappointed by others. How many times do we feel that way? Or we say we're just so used to it that it becomes natural. We just expect to be let down by others. I feel like I have to walk on eggshells to maintain the peace. Now, are you being honest? Are you really talking about how you feel? Do you just go with the flow because you're afraid if you walk on eggshells, or if you don't walk on eggshells, there's not going to be peace in your house? I find myself giving in to avoid an argument. How many times do you just go, it's fine. Whatever, it's fine. I don't really care. It's fine today. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Do we do that? Do we do that? My spouse, partner, or loved one blames me for everything. Do you feel like you're the brunt of the blame? Well, I'm in a bad mood because you did this, or your action caused this. If you wouldn't have done this, I wouldn't have acted this way, and you've ruined my day. We hear that a lot too, right? You find yourself apologizing for your actions. I used to sit down before I would say anything to my mother, my friends, my veterans, and I would say, I'm sorry if, like, I'm sorry if this offends you. I'm sorry if this pisses you off. I'm sorry if you don't believe the same thing I do. Nope, I got rid of that. I stopped with the I'm sorry. I have a right to believe what I want. The You do things for others even though you really don't want to. Like, you've got something going on, somebody else comes in and says, hey, can you do this for me? And you really don't want to do that, but you do it anyway. Find ourselves there a lot. I feel like it doesn't matter what I need or want. That comes a lot. Like, you just don't feel like your needs are met, or your wants are met, or you don't feel like you have value. And that comes across a lot. I feel like others control my life and my decisions. How many times do you feel like nothing you say matters? You're going to do whatever they say. You're going to do all these things. I think that's kind of where we all felt in the beginning. Or I know that's where I felt. So a lot of these things are true. This is going to be hard because it's not normal. It is not normal to feel like we have rights. It is not normal to stand up for yourself. It is not normal for you to understand that you control your feelings. That is uncomfortable. It is the way it's supposed to be, but it's not a normal behavior for us. So when you start to do this, it's gonna feel uncomfortable. There's a lot in this journey that feels uncomfortable, but that again is okay. It's okay for it to be uncomfortable, right? You've got to remember there's a new set of rules, and these rules do not just apply to you, and they do not just apply to your veteran, and they do not just apply to your family. They apply to every single person, right? So there's a new set of rules we're going to live by. One, you're no longer responsible for the way somebody else feels, and they're not responsible for how you feel. You are not responsible for how somebody else feels, and they're not responsible for how you feel. I can remember things would come up and I'd be like, you made me so mad. I am furious because of you. I am furious because of what you did. And he's like, okay, get over it. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you need to get over it. Well, I did. Because I was the one who was mad. He wasn't mad, I was. Same thing in reverse. If he gets mad because I voiced my opinion, we don't have to agree now. Remember, we do not have to agree. But if he gets mad because I voiced my opinion and my opinion is different, that's on them. You are allowed to have your own opinion, and only you are responsible for your feelings. So if you want to have a bad day all day today, then have one. But that's your choice. Nothing anybody else does can stop you from having a good day. That's something you do. Same thing with anybody else. Same rules apply. So there's not a set of rules for the veteran and a set of rules for us. The same rules apply across the board. Really hard to get used to and really hard to understand. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, okay, so your veteran has the drinks into oblivion. It doesn't necessarily mean, well, if he's drinking and I gonna drink as bad as he is, because if he did this to me, I'm gonna do that to him. That's a tit for tat theory, and that doesn't work. That's bad action for bad action. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about rights that we all have. They're ours. Nobody can take them away from us. So really be conscious about that when you're starting to have these conversations. This is going to be the beginning of it. You must be good for yourself first before you can be good for anybody else. I call this the air mask and the airplane theory. How many times have you flown and the little stewardess will stand in the front of the plane and she'll say, in the event that the cabin depressurizes, a mask will fall out of the ceiling. Please extend the elastic strap, put it over the mask over your nose and mouth, and tighten the strap before you help anybody else. Before you help anybody else. You cannot create a double victim. And that's what happens when we stop being good and putting ourselves first and our mental well being. Doesn't mean that I'm saying go out and buy yourself a new outfit every day. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying mentally, you have to be good for yourself before you can be good for anybody else. Otherwise, you create the double victim theory. We've been taught, I've been a paramedic, we've been taught over and over again. If somebody is in a situation, don't go running into that fire to grab the guy from the fire. If you're not protected, and if you're not in fire gear and got the little mask on, don't go grab the guy, or now you have two victims. The double thing. You have to be good for yourself. You have to take care of yourself because nobody else is going to do it for you. The same rule applies to our veterans. It applies to everybody else in our lives. You have to be able to be good for yourself first, or you can't be good for anybody else. That's not always easy. You are entitled to have your needs, your wants, okay, and your feelings, and you should be free to express them. Now, free to express them doesn't mean scream and holler, which I did a lot of. You're entitled to say, hey, I need a few hours of downtime. I need to walk away from this situation. I want this. Again, the exact same thing happens in reverse. Doesn't mean you have to give into it. Doesn't mean that if they say, I want this, that you have to just jump up and do it. All it says is you're entitled to your feelings, your needs, and your wants, and you have a right to express them. It doesn't say you're always going to get them. So we have to start learning to communicate our right, our feelings, our needs, and our wants. And we have to understand that not everybody has to give them to us. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with that. But you still have to communicate. Because if you don't communicate it, people are not mind readers. It's really important. Your decisions are yours to make. You can ask other people their opinions, but ultimately, your decisions are yours. You choose what is best for you. Don't let other people dictate what they think is best for you. And I've lived this for a long time. Other people always told me what was best for me, and I tried to please them, and it didn't work, and I hated who I was. Right? I have to make my own decisions, and I have to own them, just like everybody else. And I know these are not things that everybody wants to hear. You're probably partway through this by now going, oh, no, 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 no. I wanted her to tell me how to fix it and what was wrong with my veteran. I'm telling you, this is how you start to fix it. Okay? Remember, your spouse or your partner or your loved one cannot make you mad. Their actions may make you mad, And that action may make you mad, but they can't make you mad. At the end of the day, you ultimately decide how your feelings. You ultimately control those, right? You cannot make them stop doing something. I hear it all the time. I want, they have to stop drinking. They have to stop screaming at me. They have to stop doing this. They have to stop doing that. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to be part of a conversation when they're yelling. You don't have to be around them when they're yelling. You don't have to do any of those things. But you can't make other people do stuff. You can have conversations, but you can't make other people do stuff. And that's really, really, really hard when it comes to how we deal with things. Right? Others cannot stop you from having your needs and wants met. You make that choice. If you need 10 minutes, take it. Don't give it, because otherwise, when they say, well, they won't let me have 10 minutes by myself. I said that a lot. I can't have 10 minutes. If you need 10 minutes, take 10 minutes. Just take it. Okay. This way of thinking goes against the normal grain. It will go against the grain. Right? It takes a lot of practice and getting used to, but you can do it. You can do it. Let me show you how it applies to the list. Right? I'm going to go back to my list that I made initially. I hate the way he talks to me when he's mad. That was on my list. I cannot control the way he talks to me. Only he can change that. I can control me sitting there and listening. Okay? I can't control the way he's talking to me. I can control whether I choose to sit there and listen to him. I hate when he yells at me. I can't control that either. But I can control how his yelling makes me feel. So if when he raised his voice and he was yelling, and I felt dumb or belittled or stupid, remember, my feelings are mine. He didn't control that. I did. That's how you have to start thinking through this process. Again, I hate it when he makes me feel stupid. He didn't make me feel stupid. I chose to feel stupid. Not something you want to hear. I hate it when every time I try to have a conversation about what's bothering me, he can turn it around and make it about him. I have the right to tell him what's bothering me. I have that right. He has the right to respond how he wants. The communication starts with us being able to have this right to say, hey, I'm really scared, or I'm afraid, or this is how I feel. Now, they don't have to listen, they don't have to respond to it, but when you start leading with these kind of changes, the way you communicate, you're going to find that your veteran also does. People live what they learn. So if it is acceptable, or learn what they live, if it becomes acceptable to say how you're feeling, and not in anger, and not be screaming when you're doing it, they're going to see that, and things will come down and change. It's not necessarily what you want to hear. I hate the anger. I hated it. Well, if I'm feeling anger, that's my choice. feeling anger, that's on him. Right? I hated it when he slammed things down. I can't control that. I just control how I respond. So it used to be he'd slam something. I would get angry. I would get pissed off. I would pick up a picture frame and throw it, or throw a picture on the floor, or a plate. Been known to do that a time or two. Not recommended. Throw a dozen eggs across the floor. I did that too. Don't recommend that either. So my response to his anger was more anger. And the only person who could choose that was me. So how do you think things escalated? He was angry, slamming things down. I was angry because he was angry. It pissed me off. So now I'm slamming things down. He's now more angry, so he's slamming things down. Then you wonder how a hole gets in the wall. That's where it was coming from. That's where it was coming from. We were feeding and fueling each other. Because most people don't understand. It's not, it goes against the grain to realize you control your emotions. It goes against the grain to realize that other people can't make you mad. Right? What is normal is, well, if you did this to me, I can do it back. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's the way we've always lived, so that's the way we've always done it. Somebody has to stop the cycle. Somebody has to stop the spread. I had to learn that I could control my own situation. And when I started to learn to control my situation and my responses, things got better, but you have to be consistent. Now, I'm not saying you won't backslide. I'm not saying you won't make a mistake from time to time, because that also happens. But I'm saying consistently, you need to pay attention to that. I hate it when he drinks. Hate it. Hate it. Every bit of it. But the drinking was on him. It was his choice. What did I do? Friday morning. Hey, babe, weekend's coming. How much beer do you need for the weekend? And then I go buy it. Go to the store and I pick it up. I was going to the store anyway, so I bought all the beer. Then I brought it home. Then he drank it. And I didn't like the way he acted. So then I stood there with a butcher knife and I stabbed the cans. And when I really started thinking about it, and I also spent a long time having a conversation with a friend of mine who is a 30-year recovering alcoholic and does an amazing job. He said, but you enabled the whole thing. I said, what? I did not open that beer for him. He said, no, you didn't open it, but you made it damn sure easy. I said, what? He said, you went and bought it. When you go out and buy it, you're telling him basically it's okay to drink it. And I was. Didn't realize it, but I was. All right. So now it's time that you do the same thing. I want you to take a look at your top two things and apply the rules. And there's spaces in the little printable for you to do that. Take your top two things. Start applying those rules that we just talked about. Look at it in a different perspective. Your top two things are still going to be there. And I want those top two things to stay there because those are the things we're going to communicate when we start to take control of our relationship. And I'm going to teach you how to communicate those top two things. Or one. I did one. I had a list, 5 pages. I was just going to banner off. Didn't work, by the way. I didn't even try it because I knew where it would be. You need to sit there and apply those rules. I want you to really think about what we just talked about, those few things that now there's a whole lot more rights that we'll have later that we'll talk about in more advanced classes, but these are the beginning ones. So I want you to take your one or two top things and I want you to start applying those rules. That's about ownership. It's taking ownership. What do you own? What do they own? And what just is? That is your next big hurdle. That is your next big step. You need to work through those so we can go and finish this whole little thing up once we get there, right? I'm gonna teach you how to communicate. You're gonna learn how to communicate those things. You're gonna understand the value of trust. I'm gonna talk a little bit about boundaries, which I know everybody screams about. Oh, you got to have a boundary. Yeah, you do. That's not the way you think, right? And I'm gonna tell you how I did it. I'm gonna tell you more importantly how to celebrate your victories, because your victories are everything. Your victories, celebrating them, are everything. That's where you need to be. So I hope you've enjoyed part two of Loving a Veteran 101. Again, these classes just build and build and build. And you refine the knowledge. We didn't go from where we were to where we are today overnight. Got a lot of work, got a lot of tears, a lot of yelling, a lot of anger. Stacy wanted to pull her hair out. I'm sure he wanted to pull his hair out too. We didn't get there. It's a process. And I didn't really even see or gauge the process and what we'd overcome until I had to look back. It wasn't really beginning. You don't talk about how the beginning was. You make it sound like this is the way it always was. Your veteran's different. My veteran was not different. I was not different. Not at all. So that's part of where we're going. So I hope again you enjoyed part two. Part three. Yeah, just make sure you do the work so you can get into part three. I'm Stacy. Y'all have a blessed day. I promise you. Plug in, follow the steps, and your life will change.